Welcome everyone to the 15th Annual Oklahoma Transition Institute. This year is being offered virtually and is hosted by, as always, the Oklahoma Transition Council. A few tidbit and housekeeping items before we turn it over to the main presenter. One is, please use the chat box for any questions or comments you might have for the presenter or for the host for troubleshoot items. This training is being recorded for participants to access after the event. Closed captions are available by young reporters. You can view closed captions a couple of different ways. Click on the closed captions box to choose show subtitle. You can view a full transcript. If you choose to show subtitles or show subtitles, it will appear at the bottom of the screen. If you choose view full transcript, the transcript will run throughout the side panel and replace the chat box viewer. You can adjust the caption size and make it larger or smaller by going to the video settings and clicking on accessibility. Move the slider to adjust the caption size, or go to more settings where you chose the subtitles and choose adjust subtitles. Both of these options take you to the accessibility settings. We also have ASL interpreters present. To ensure they are visible, you may pin videos by a couple of different ways. Cover over the video of the interpreter, click on the three dots and then pin their video. Or you can click on participants at the bottom of your screen, then more, and next to the name you see starting with the interpreter and pin the video that way as well. Couple of more tips. Audio, you want to make sure your computer or headphone speakers are turned on and the volume is adjusted to your preference. Everyone's microphones have been muted upon entry. You can mute or unmute yourself. We do ask that you stay muted when not speaking to allow less distractions, but click unmute to speak during the Q&A. Or let us know and we will walk you through that Q&A session. Start and stop video. You may choose to have your video on throughout the training. If you do have bandwidth issues, you might want to turn off your video to help with that. At any time, you can click the microphone icon at the bottom left to mute and unmute. There's a chat window available. Type in the chat to share your questions and insights and to let us know if you're having any technical difficulties. Click on panelists and attendees to send your message to everyone. Click on a specific attendee to send a private message to that individual. You are in control of your viewing experience in Zoom, but we do have some recommendations below for the best experience. One is exit full screen mode. By doing that, you go to the top right button where it says view. And once you click on that, you'll have some options in the drop-down menu. Enable side-by-side mode. Click on the speaker view to only see the current presenter's video, or gallery view to see videos of all participants, again in that top right button. You can click on the chat after exiting full screen mode to pin the right side of the screen. If you have any questions, please put your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation. I will be assisting Gretchen, the presenter, in monitoring those chats, and we will try to take them as they come and as they are relevant with the topic. If time allows, presenters will also field questions at the end of their sessions while allowing participants to unmute their microphones. If you experience technical issues in Zoom, you can also put that in the chat box and let us know what your challenges are. or you can email Kim Osmani directly, and that email address is kosmani@cornell.edu, and she can assist you that way. All participants will receive an email at the end of the day on September 30th, 2020. Once you submit your online evaluation, you'll be able to print certificates for each day. If you are a certified rehabilitation counselor or a CRC and want to request CRCs after the OTI, there's a few steps to follow. One is you'll want to email LaShara Thomas, and her email address is lthomas@okdrs.gov. And what you'll need to email her is a screenshot of the message on the screen after you hit submit on your online evaluation, also the accompanying certificates, and a list of the sessions that you attended. Before we turn it over to the presenter, I want to say thank you to our sponsors for this 15th annual OTI. That includes Oklahoma Rehabilitation Services, the Oklahoma Family Network, Oklahoma Able Tech, Oklahoma Division on Career Development and Transition, and Pathways Adult Learning Center. For more information about the Oklahoma Transition Council, you can visit the website, which is found on the ou.edu website under Education, Centers and Partnerships, ZARO, Oklahoma Transition Council. You can also follow the Oklahoma Transition Council on social media. If anyone has their camera, you can hold it up to the QR code and go directly to that link. So with all of that, I want to introduce you to Gretchen Colade. She's an expert in the industry of assistive technology and special education. She's on faculty here at Oklahoma State University and guest presents with her expertise for Able Tech on many occasions. She's going to talk to us today on transitioning as it relates to assistive technology. And so with that, I will hand it over to you, Gretchen.
Thank you so much, Shelley. And thank you to the interpreter and captioners. I was born and pretty much raised on the East Coast, and so I am a fast talker. So I need to apologize and say that everybody just bear with the interpreter and the captioners. I'm sure they'll catch up. As Shelley said, I am currently on the faculty at Oklahoma State University. However, I am also a retired special ed teacher, and I taught students with severe disabilities at a high school, and so transition was certainly a huge part of what I did on a yearly and monthly and even daily basis with my students. So I'm getting ready to share my screen with you all. All right, the title of our presentation tonight is Assistive Technology. So whenever you see the AT, that's what that means, assistive technology in the individual education plan, the IEP, and transitioning AT with students. All right, so our learning outcomes. What we hope you will be able to do by the end of the session is to name supports that can be used to create and implement operational procedures for transitioning assistive technology with students. And then the second one is we will list assistive technology devices and services that may assist students before and after their transition, and how these devices and services may be documented within the IEP. The first thing we're going to talk about are operational procedures. And what I love about working with Oklahoma Able Tech is that after all the years that I worked with students with disabilities as they transition from high school into post-high school life, was that I kind of was doing it by the seat of my pants. And then I met Oklahoma Able Tech. and they introduced me to what is called the quality indicators for assistive technology. And what's fabulous about that acronym that we use in the field is called the QUIET. And what I love about the QUIET is it's a roadmap. It tells you how you should be doing things that are best practice. And sometimes whenever we meet people who perhaps aren't sure of what best practice is or are, then we certainly need to have something to back us up. I truly, truly encourage all of you to take some time to spend on the QUIET website, which is listed on the screen, and it is the www.quiet.indicators.html. All right. Believe it or not, within the QUIET indicators, there's a whole section on transition. Again, it's a roadmap. We don't need to make it up. We don't need to create it. It already exists when we're talking about assistive technology. And so the first part of the indicators that says this is what a best practice looks like in transition with AT is transition plans address assistive technology needs of the student, including roles and training, needs of team members, subsequent steps in assistive technology use, and follow-up after transition takes place. And the intent of this particular indicator is the comprehensive transition plan required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act assists the receiving agency or team to successfully provide needed supports for the assistive technology user. This involves the assignment of responsibilities and the establishment of accountability. One of the parts of my dissertation, I earned my dissertation in 2015. So for those of you who are thinking, wow, what should I do after I retire? I don't know right now if I would tell you to do this, but I got my PhD. And so part of my dissertation was looking at how teams of individuals support an individual with complex communication needs. And what I found was there's actually an article that was written in 1974, before the IDEA was signed into law, that said no one is responsible for communication, making sure communication happens. And what I discovered in my dissertation and looking at 4 different teams of people was that literally, I want you to picture everybody's hand on a table, and whenever you say who's in charge of making sure that this child can use assistive technology, it is literally a 1, 2, 3, not me. Not me, I can't do it. Not me, I'm too busy. I don't have the expertise. I don't know what I'm doing. And so what the QUIET indicator number 1 says is the transition plan makes sure that people understand, oh, I am going too fast through my slides, that they need to have someone identified and then provide the training. The second part of the quality indicator says, transition planning empowers the student using assistive technology to participate in the transition planning at a level appropriate to age and ability, with the intent being that specific self-determination skills are taught that enable the student to gradually assume responsibility for participation and leadership in assistive technology transition planning as their capacity develops. Certainly, assistive technology tools are provided as needed to support the students' participation. And I know usually I am talking to the choir whenever I say this, but I firmly always believed that regardless of the student's ability, we need to find ways for the student to be able to express their opinions and their hopes and where they want to go. And so bottom line, it comes down to a nothing about me without me. And I'll share with you real quickly that not only am I a retired teacher or special ed teacher, but I also have an older brother, Michael, who has severe disabilities. And one of them is complex communication needs. And I am now his guardian. And I will tell you that at every meeting, I make sure that Michael's voice is heard with support. All right, let's go on to number 3. The third one for the quality indicators for transition states advocacy related to assistive technology use is recognized as critical and planned for by the teams involved in transition, with the intent that everyone involved in transition advocates for the student's progress, including the student's use of AT. Specific advocacy tasks related to AT use are addressed and may be carried out by the student, the family, staff members, or a representative. And I think this is so important with the word being critical, that we can't just think of AT as something that, oh yeah, by the way, we need to talk about, but it absolutely needs to be part of, if they're using technology while they're in the current setting, it absolutely needs to be transitioned. And if the new setting is different, then we need to be talking about what we need to be advocating for, what needs to be done next. The fourth quality indicator is that assistive technology requirements in the receiving environment, just as I was saying, are identified during the transition planning process, with the intent being that environmental requirements, skill demands, and needed AT support are determined in order to plan appropriately. This determination is made collaboratively and with active participation by representatives from the sending and the receiving environments. I was blessed to work on a grant that we worked with young children from the Oklahoma State Child Development Lab, and we had a little one from kindergarten transition into a local school. Claudia Otto and I, she's on the meeting today, and I got to work with them. And so we had to help transition him with his assistive technology communication device from the Child Development Lab to the kindergarten, and then we got to transition him into first grade. In first grade, he had to do a lot more talking, and so a lot more training had to be done, and a collaborative team needed to not only advocate, but to also make sure that the receiving environment, being first grade, was ready for and knew what he could do. All right, number 5 of quality indicators. The transition planning for students using assistive technology proceeds according to an individualized timeline. And again, I know I'm talking to the choir, but we need to look at transition planning timelines and making sure they're adjusted based on specific needs of the student and the differences in environments. Timelines address well-mapped action steps with specific target dates and ongoing opportunities for reassessment. Again, this is the map that says, here's what we're going to do, but then here are the checkpoints. When are we going to assess to make sure it's working? And if it's not working, do we need to do something different? Number 6, transition plans address specific equipment, training, and funding issues, such as transfer or acquisition of assistive technology, manuals, and support documents, with the intent that a plan is developed to ensure that the AT equipment, hardware, and/or software arrives in working condition, accompanied by any needed manuals. Provisions for ongoing maintenance and technical support are included in the plan. What I think is interesting, those of us who have worked with anything that needs to be charged, I always wonder when I read number 6, should it also include the charging cords? And so absolutely, those things need to move forward with the devices. For transition resources, please, I've listed one that is assistive technology and transition, and it is actually, it comes out of an article by Canfield and Reed in 2001, and they developed the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Initiative at 800 Algoma, A-L-G-O-M-A Boulevard in Oshkosh, O-S-H-K-O-S-H, Wisconsin, 54901, with the phone number 920-424-2247. Their email is www.transitioncoalition, all one word, lowercase, .org/wp-content/original, which is all under lowercase, capital S ITE, then lowercase ITE, capital ASSETS. So original site assets, /files, /docs, /AT transition packet, 1224259340.pdf. And basically what Canfield and Reed in 2001 put together was a procedure guide for assistive technology and transition planning. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how excited I was to read about this and learn what Canfield and Reed did. And I've been out of the classroom since 2011. And I actually called back to my high school and gave them this information. It's fabulous. Assistive technology protocol for transition planning. There's a student information guide for self-determination and assistive technology management with an AT goal setting worksheet. It sounds like Canfield and Reed really did follow the quiet, don't you think? It then provides an assistive technology planning guide for transition. And this is what I absolutely love, is that they have a student portfolio for successful transition with assistive technology. And this is like a notebook that should travel with students. I don't know if you've ever had a parent provide you with a, hey, let me introduce you to my child book. I loved those parents. Okay, I did have one parent that gave me 3 volumes. And that was a little much. I got a lot of information about that little one. But for the most part, can you imagine if we could develop one of these for each one of our students who's using assistive technology and have them bring that to the receiving setting? Would be fabulous, because it includes a student's identifying information, the student's documentation, which includes recent individual education plans, assessment reports, and listen to this, documentation of successful accommodations, modifications, and assistive technology, along with documentation of assistive technology self-determination skills, record of eligibility for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, if that's appropriate. It also includes assistive technology information, assistive technology emergency plan. That's the what if the battery dies, or we had a little one, or I had a little one in my dissertation who used an iPad with the LAMP app on it to communicate, and he was running to a one of those jump houses at Stillwater Special Olympics, you know, a couple of years ago, and he swung it around his head because his mother was yelling, don't take your iPad on the jump house, and he swung it around his head and threw it, and the first point of contact was a tree trunk. And so that would need an assistive technology emergency plan for his receiving agency to say, this is what we do when the screen breaks. And then certainly transition resources are part of the Canfield and Reed procedure guide. All right, let's talk real quickly about best practices and operational procedures for documenting AT in the IEP. I know that we've talked about the quiet, but now let's talk about things that aren't brought up in the quiet specifically. They're in there, but they're kind of embedded. First, there is truly no wrong way to record assistive technology in the IEP. The most important point is to capture the process the team plans to pursue or is currently pursuing and record pertinent information related to, number 1, the student's needs, and number 2, the use of AT. And I think what I don't know about you all, but as an educator, I take great comfort in reading. There's no wrong way, so try your best and make sure that we keep the student's needs in mind, and then the use of AT. And then the second one is, remember, it is best practice for schools or districts to develop operational procedures for how those that are completing IEPs should record AT in the IEP. And what this means is, I'm kind of challenging those of you who are parents and those of you who are in districts to go to your special ed director and say, do we have written operational procedures for assistive technology? Because if they do, transitions should be in there. And if they don't, then hopefully your conversation will spur them on to make one. I want to quickly go through some categories of assistive technology and provide some examples of them so that you can think. My expertise for the most part lies in speech communication. However, I have used something in every single one of these categories in my classroom and then also in my research. The first of the examples is computer access. The second is vision. The third is hearing. The fourth is learning, cognition, and development. Boy, that's a huge category. Number 5 is daily living. Number 6 is speech communication. Number 7 is seating, positioning, and mobility. Number 8 is environmental adaptations. Number 9 is recreation, sports, and leisure. And number 10 is vehicle modifications. So let me give you a couple of examples going through each one of them. The first AT example is computer access. And on the screen, there are 2 pictures. The first one is a Logitech wireless trackball mouse, M570. And that particular mouse really kind of goes with the shape of the palm of your hand. And the ball that you would use to move the cursor would be operated by your thumb, and the clickers would be used by your fingers. And so it doesn't require significant hand motion or movement to operate it. The second one is called the Rock Adapted Joystick, and it's shaped like a rectangle with kind of a handle up. And so the student would use the handle to hold onto and move their wrist more so than their thumb to move the cursor. And then there's a red, a yellow, a green, and a blue dot as well that they would use to press. What's great about these, and first let me also emphasize that I am showing you just a very few examples. Please go on to Oklahoma Able Tech's website to find others. I will tell you, in my classroom, I probably had at least 15 different computer access devices so that my students with a wide range of physical and cognitive abilities could access the computer. The second example on the screen, the AT example, is vision. And I have 4 different pictures. The first one is a talking calculator. It's in the shape of a rectangle. The buttons are fairly large, and the screen that you view the numbers on is bigger than the typical calculator. Realize that talking calculators come in all different sizes, and so Oklahoma Able Tech can show you ones that are very large. Again, I had a box in my room full of calculators, and it included many, many different talking calculators. I will tell you that I loved my one student who had a visual impairment. He could make the talking calculator rap, by pressing the button in certain intervals, and he would make it rap for me. The second one that you see to the right of the talking calculator is called a Pebble mini handheld magnifier. That magnifier is one that you would hold up to something that you need to read, and it would magnify what you're looking at. The next one on the bottom row is an iPad with an app called the Voice Dream Reader. And it has a picture of an open book, and you would load the book in and it would read the book to you. And then finally, the last one is a writing guide kit, and it shows multiple ways of putting a kind of like a sheet onto a piece of paper that would help you be able to write in straight lines. So it gives you a guide. The next examples are for hearing. The first is the Comfort Contago, and it is 2 pieces, and it will amplify your speech. The second is a telephone amplifier. Again, it would amplify the speech. In looking at that picture, the Comfort Contago has 2 pieces to it, where the telephone amplifier is actually a large telephone with large numbers on it. And the actual phone itself is attached to the device. hearkening back to the days when that was the way our phones always were. And then the final one is the comfort duet. And it is an amplifier that has a minus and a plus button on it, so that way you can control the level of sound that you are hearing. Again, these are very few of the many different examples that Oklahoma Able Tech has. The next ones, wow, are the learning, cognition, and development. And again, this kind of goes towards any type of, again, learning that they will do. So this is reading and writing, and oh my gosh, this category is huge. This is where I feel like a kid in a, actually not a kid, an adult in a Target store, where you don't have a list, but you just want to see everything, so that way you can say, wow, this is something I want to try. And so they have, my first example is a ring pen ultra large, and that's where you would put the ring onto the finger and then be able to write. The second one is a watch minder, and what I love about my relationships with the people at Oklahoma Able Tech is that I get to see all these new things. And with the watch minder is an example of where you have a watch and you record in it when you want to be reminded for something. And one of the things might be to take your medicine. It might be to, that a meeting is starting. I don't know how many of you, I am constantly, now that we're living in the world of Zoom, I am constantly, when I have a meeting that I'm not planning, or that is just an individual kind of a surprise meeting, I will put it on my phone alarm so that it will go off. That's what a watch minder does for people. So what I love about assistive technology is, can't some of you go, well, that might work for me too? And so that's what I love, again, about assistive technology. And then the third picture is, okay, so the watch minder is actually a picture of a watch, and then it shows a picture of the watch with the plug-in, because certainly, we live in a day and age of, boy, let's plug that battery in. And then finally, the Evo pen. The Evo pen is, well, it's hard to describe the shape. It's got a large round end, and then it comes down into almost like a square, and then the pen part of it is sticking out of the square end. And so this is a writing utensil that students could hold, and it doesn't require that very, I think, almost difficult for some of our students, fine motor ability to hold a pencil and not have it be painful to our students. And so I will tell you that I would have loved to have had a watch minder in my classroom, but I did have Evo pens. I had multiple ways of writing. I will then continue, because we love the learning, cognition, and development ideas, and so we'll continue it on to the next slide. And there is an iPad that you can use with Notability app, which helps you write. There's a Chromebook with Mind Mup app that is another app that will help process information using a computer. For the Chromebook, it actually has a picture of the Chromebook on, and then it has a little Mind Mup. It looks kind of like a spider, only a cute spider. Everybody be careful. I heard on the news today that now it's spider weather. And, I thought, I didn't mean to hear that this morning, but I guess spiders are coming out. And then finally, the last picture is of a Chromebook with a headset, voice typing in Google Docs. A lot of our Chromebooks and our laptops already come with programs within them that Oklahoma Able Tech can teach you about that will help you. And so this has voice typing, and so it has a picture of a laptop, or it says Chromebook, but to me it looks more like a laptop. And then it has a set of headphones that would then plug into your laptop or Chromebook, and it has voice typing that you can do straight into Google Docs. And boy, Google Docs are being used by a lot of people, and me as the dinosaur, I'm being dragged towards Google Docs. Our next AT examples are daily living. And I think this is, again, going back to our quality indicators, what we need to understand very carefully and very importantly and very critically is that as educators and family members of people with disabilities that require assistive technology, it's not just about the academics. you know, before No Child Left Behind, and don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled that we have No Child Left Behind. I was teaching before No Child Left Behind, and I taught after No Child Left Behind. And I will tell you that the best thing No Child Left Behind ever did for us is they made us count. It made us important. And so what I was kind of sad about, though, is that then our daily living skills went off our IEPs because of the debate between should school be academic, should school be, you know, functional living skills, what should school be doing? And my statement always to my students' parents was, I will help you with both. And in fact, in my student survey or my parent survey that I would put out every single year, I would, at the beginning of each year, I would say to the parents, how can I help you this year? And I will guarantee you, not one parent said, I'm interested in whether they can identify the parts of a cell in biology. Not one. But I had parents say, can you help us be able to have them be able to put their coat on? Can you help them go to a basketball game and be able to tell what the score is? Can you, I love one of them was, it was one of my young men who is employed right now at a local grocery store. And he would open a bag of chips and pop it open and chips would go everywhere. That's what they asked me for. They asked me for things that had to do with daily living. And so if you take a look at the pictures here, now, while I think sometimes, especially with transition, when we're transitioning from high school into adulthood, we look at these and we think, oh no, these are for little kids. But adults need to be able to eat as independently as possible. And so we have a picture of what's called a little spill cup. And it's a cup that if it's knocked over, for whatever reason, I had students with cerebral palsy who would use little spill cups because when they would be reaching for the cup, before they had a firm grasp on the cup, they might knock it over. That's what the little spill cup helps with. For me, daily living truly addresses the dignity of humanity. I haven't now made a huge mess on the table and now I'm embarrassed because I'm out at a restaurant and I've spilled something, rather than bringing a little spill cup with you. The next picture is okay, and so I'll describe the little spill cup. It's a clear plastic cup with a lid that kind of pushes down inside of it. And so obviously there is a hole for you to pick it up and bring it up and drink from it. But if it tips over, it does not spill all of the liquid doesn't go. Maybe a little bit might, but depending on how it hits. The second picture is of an inner lip plate. On this picture, it has a fork and a spoon on a napkin. It then has the inner lip plate, and it's a round one with no divisions. It then, beside that plate, it also shows another inner lip plate that actually has 3 divisions, because we all know, and I bet if I could poll you all, who wants their food touching? Who likes to eat with their food touching? That has nothing to do with disabilities and everything to do with personalities. And so I'm always amazed when people say, oh, there's a student who won't let his food touch. And I'm thinking, I know at least 10 people that don't like to eat with their food touching. And so, so it recognizes and respects that sometimes people are okay with food touching and sometimes aren't. And then it also comes with just a regular matching cup. All of the parts of the inner lip plate are red. And what we need to understand with the inner lip plate is that when they go to scoop the food up, it catches on a lip, and the lip helps push. It's kind of like being able to push, like with your knife, you push food up onto a fork. Well, this doesn't involve 2 hands. It involves 1 hand, and they scoop up and they use the lip as a helper to get the food on. And again, so that they can eat independently. And then finally, what is pictured are silverware or tools with built-up handles. And this is not just for silverware, but the tools include, there's a pen stuck in one, and there's actually a toothbrush stuck in another. And basically, the built-up handles in this particular case are silver. They almost look like coins stacked, but they're soft, so they're pliable. They grab onto the device, and then that way they give it a thicker handle for the individual to use. Again, Oklahoma Able Tech has a wide variety of daily living assistive technology devices that you can trial. The next one, of course, is my area of love, and it involves speech communication. The first thing that you see on the screen is called a 7-level communication builder. And it's basically a rectangular device with pictures that are divided into kind of trays. It also has a handle on the end so you can carry it. What I like about the handle is it can be carried by the kiddo between classes, like if they're going from science class to math class to wherever they're responsible, or they can be responsible for carrying it. 7-level, and off to the side of the actual device are the different levels. They have screens that have 16 pictures that the student could push and have the sound come out. They have an 8 one, a 4, a 2, and a 1 choice. And if you flip the communication builder over, there is a switch on the back that actually allows you to very quickly switch between the different communication plates. Now, I will tell you that in the field, people get frustrated with this because they're like, okay, wait, you got something to say? Hang on a sec, I got to switch. And so for the most part, people really, really like higher technology when it comes to communication if the physical ability is there. And iPad, next to this communication builder is what's called the iPad with LAMP. LAMP stands for Language Acquisition for Motor Planning. And it's a fabulous app. It is similar to the communication builder, only because it's on the web. If you want to switch plates, all you have to do is hit a different icon on the screen and a new plate will pop up. So my little one, who started with Claudia and I in the child development lab as a pre-K, we had him for pre-K, no, K, probably K, and then he went to general ed and he did K again, and then he did first grade. So we had him for 3 years. He used an iPad with a LAMP app. He had, when he got to first grade, well, actually, I think probably in all 3 grades, he had one icon at the top that he would hit and it said friends on it. And then up would pop a screen that gave him individual icons with pictures of his friends in class, so that he could, the teacher could say, who do you want to play with? And he would pop up his friend's screen. He would first say, I want play with, and then he would go to that screen and pick a friend. And so that particular picture is just of the LAMP app logo, and it just spells out LAMP all in capital letters. The next thing you see is the Tobii i12 with eye gaze. This looks like just a mini computer with a back stand, and it has, again, a screen of icons. And what's great about the Tobii i12 with eye gaze is, again, it's for students who cannot press buttons but can use eye gaze. And we did have Claudia and I in one of our research or our grant project, we did have a little one who was learning how to use eye gaze. And interestingly, again, with the quiet, if you remember back to what I talked about with transition, what transition truly with the quiet means is we need to take into account individual needs. And this little one that we were working on the eye gaze with, she had speech and it was intelligible, but because of her cerebral palsy, she had difficulties with her breath control. And so she spoke very quietly. She didn't speak loud enough. Well, and at home, she didn't need it because in her home, it was her and 2 siblings and her parents. So they said, oh, we don't need it at home. But in a classroom full of 2-year-olds, she really needed a device to help her. And so we were working on that. And then, oh my gosh, her parents moved. And so, but they took the information from the device that we were using, that we were trialing still. We had not landed on a perfect device yet, but it was similar to the Tobii i12 with eye gaze. And then finally, the next one is the Nova Chat 8. And it is similar to the communication builder in that it's rectangular and it has a handle. However, it is digital in that it also has pictures and icons that you can press. Lots and lots of different opportunities for students to experiment with different communication devices. The next area of AT examples is called seating, positioning, and mobility. And if you take a look here, and this is where we really want to be able to change the environment for the students, because this gives access. All right. And so the first one is a disco sit, and it is a round disc. It's made out of soft rubber. On the picture, it actually shows the nubbly little things that stick up. If you flip to the other side, it's clear. And this is something that you sit on and that you can rock and get some type of almost vestibular feedback from it as you're sitting on it. The second one is called a how to hug seat, and I really love these. This is a seat that you insert into a chair, and it in the picture it shows it has the back to the seat and the bottom to the seat, and then a connector to the side so it connects them. And so basically what happens is that when you sit down in it, it hugs you. And for our kiddos or for our adults who need to have just a little bit of pressure to be able to sit for long periods of time, as you see me adjusting in my seat, I need a how to hug tonight. That's a wonderful assistive technology device to use. And then the final picture on the screen is of a modular hose iPad holder, and this almost looks like something from outer space. They are heavy duty holders that clip on to like a desk or any type of surface in front of you, and it holds the iPad. And what I love about the arms on the sides is that the arms on the sides actually provide opportunities to push it down, push it up, you can push it over, you can tilt it, you can do what you need to make sure that the student who's using it can gain access to that device. So you don't have to worry about their seating, that this modular hose can actually help you with it. The next one is called environmental adaptations, and this includes switches. They have a picture of a switch that is coming out of a rectangular box. The box you plug into your computer, and the switch is actually kind of a ribbed stick that comes up out, and all you have to do is hit it, and depending on how the student can access it, they're able to use a switch. Switches can turn things on and off. So if you have any home devices like a blender that you want to use, you can use a switch to do it. The other example is a crank adjustable standing table. And oh, I went too far. And on that one, a standing desk rather, you can actually, it's a desk that you crank, and it can go up or down. And again, you know, I think sometimes we tend to want to say, oh, assistive technology is for people with disabilities. And yet all over OSU's campus, there are people with standing desks now, because they're finding that they are helpful to everyone. The second to the last one are examples of recreation, sports, and leisure. And this is so important too for our students. If you have students who are involved in Special Olympics, I certainly would hope that would transition from the high school into adult life, because Special Olympics is a lifelong activity that our students can participate in. And certainly Oklahoma Able Tech can help them. And so on the picture, you see a talking pedometer. How many of us have something that counts their steps? This is a talking one that you carry, and it will tell you how many steps you've taken. Next to it are tactile checkers, and it's let me back up. The talking pedometer is rectangular shaped, and it's something that you would hold in your hand as you walk. So certainly you'd be swinging your arm as you're walking. Next to it is the tactile checkers, and it's a rectangular box and it's divided into three, with the center being the actual checkers and the top and the bottom being where you would put the checkers when you're not using them. And wherever the checkers go, there are holes. And so you could feel where there is a hole or a space where you could move the checkers. And the last picture on the slide is of a low vision Monopoly, where the colors are much, much brighter and simpler print, so that way you can visually process it. Finally, vehicle modifications. And I know a lot of times we think immediately of a vehicle modification, number one, being hugely expensive, and number two, usually involving a wheelchair. However, if you look at these pictures, you'll see that the first one is a wheelchair tie down, where it is simply tying down into a part of the car to keep the wheelchair safe. The second one is a hand grip, and this is it generally is used in the back seat, and it hooks onto the back of the headrest of the driver or the front passenger seat, and it is to give you a hand grip. It's shaped like a U attached to the back of the headrest, to be able to pull forward, to be able to, it gives you a little bit of oomph to get out of the car or to get into the car and get settled. And then the final one is an unbuckle me, and I love this. This is a very small U-shaped device with a rectangular piece that's jutting into the middle of the U, and it goes around the buckle, and you simply press on the top of the unbuckle me, and it will push the buckle so that you can get out of the seat. So those are all cases or all examples of assistive technology. Realize you can borrow them for free from Oklahoma Able Tech. Please go onto their website and take a look. Now I want to talk you through a couple of case studies that Oklahoma Able Tech shared with me, and I love them because they kind of run the whole gamut of students and people we know and love with disabilities. The first one on this page, there's an oval shaped icon, and it has the story inside. And this was a high schooler with autism who was nonverbal. He had a job placement trial at Cece's Pizza, and he needed to be able to communicate with both patrons, customers, and coworkers. And the solution was to use an Accent 1000, and that is a communication device much similar, similar to an iPad with like a lamp app. Realize that the Accent 1000 though has the challenge between like an Accent and an iPad is that the Accent is what we call a dedicated device, and that means nothing else is on it except the communication part of it, where the iPad, we all know, if you, boy, and especially kids, or adults, they can get you into games really quickly. So this person with autism trialed an Accent 1000, and he needed reminders to step through tasks like refilling the salad bar. Okay, let me back up. So to communicate, it was the Accent 1000. Then he needed reminders to step through tasks like refilling the salad bar. What do you do first? What do you do next? What do you do next? There's an AT solution called a step-by-step that actually prompts him through it, and it can be individualized. So, and he was very successful working on this job placement at Cece's. The second one was a high schooler with multiple sclerosis who used a wheelchair and had difficulty using hands to access pencil, paper, and calculator. He was taking advanced placement classes, and he wanted to pursue college. He needed alternative access to learning materials and accommodations for completing and submitting work. The AT solution was a laptop with Dragon Naturally Speaking. Those of you who aren't familiar with it, that is a program that you can put onto any computer, and you talk into it, and then it will type what you're saying. He used a math talk software, and he used a headset microphone, so that way he wasn't having to hold a microphone or have a microphone on a stand and have to locate right in front of it. Very successful with it, and was able to go on academically. The third one, the third successful case study involved a high schooler with learning disabilities who needed textbooks and other learning materials read aloud. This person was taking an auto mechanic class at a career tech. The AT solution was a textbook available in a digital format and access to a desktop computer. He used built-in features to read, and built-in features mean they already exist, so you don't even have to go out and buy them. Built-in features to read the text aloud, also used Big Keys keyboard. Those are special keyboards that I can't show you everything, but I loved lots of different AT keyboards. You name the ability of a child, Oklahoma Able Tech has a keyboard you can trial. I probably in my classroom after working with Oklahoma Able Tech had probably 9 different keyboards. And then he used a trackball mouse for easier computer access. And he was successful at career tech. So again, he transitioned from the high school into career tech. And of course, you know, think back with the quality indicators, we need them to be working together. So let's talk about documenting AT in a transition plan. And so the first thing we need to talk about is that with Oklahoma Able Tech, they provide specific guidance on including AT in the special factors section of Ed Plan. Those of you who are educators are well familiar with Ed Plan here in Oklahoma, and parents, that is where teachers, that's the computer program that teachers use. There are 3 additional places in Ed Plan to document assistive technology. Number 1 is in the overall objective statement. Number 2 is in the goals and objectives. And number 3 is in the supplementary aids and services. Those are all areas where your person, if you are a parent attending, where your teacher needs to be addressing that AT is being used at school. All right, I love this. Well-written goals. It clearly shows you how to write a well-written goal with a student who needs assistive technology. So first you need to consider the student and their abilities. The second, you need to consider the task they have to do. What do they have to do? And if you think back to the 10 different categories, think of all those different things throughout the day that a student would need to do. The third is A, for assistive technology. What do they need? And again, you know what I love about the Assistive Technology Act is that it requires that every state have a central point somewhere in the state to provide information about assistive technology. And we're so blessed in Oklahoma to have Oklahoma Able Tech. And okay, very selfishly, it's housed at OSU, so I can run to them if I needed to. Usually I drive because it's a big campus. But so if you don't know what kind of assistive technology you need, guess what? You don't need to know. You email or you call and you contact our wonderful Shelley, who will help you with any of the hearing devices and help you kind of process through what would you need, and then realize too that, again, as I said earlier, you can actually borrow the device and trial it so that way, you know, before you buy it, you can trial it to see. M is how is it measured, and this is huge. How are we going to measure how they're going to use it and how well they're using it? And then P, progress, allows the calculation of progress. We absolutely have to take a look at that. In our grant research that Claudia and I did, we had a little one. He was 3, he was the cutest bug you'd ever seen, and he needed a communication device. And we tried and we tried and we tried with an iPad with an app on it, and it didn't work. And we had to say it didn't work, we need to try something else. And that didn't mean that it failed in any way, shape, or form. What it meant was we learned something, and now we need to move on to something else. Finally, what I want to talk about, what I really like with the quality indicators, is that they kind of say, you know, hey, look, let's talk about, here's the quality indicator, and then here's what is absolutely unacceptable. And then this, I love how they say, this is a promising practice. All right, so the first quality indicator is that team members share clearly defined responsibilities to ensure that data are collected, evaluated, and interpreted by capable and credible team members. And what is unacceptable is that responsibilities for data collection, evaluation, or interpretation are not defined. That goes back to the 1, 2, 3, not me. That goes back to the, you know what, I don't know, I can't possibly do it, and so I'm not going to. Or saying, here's a goal, but now we're not going to say who's in charge or who is part of the team that is responsible. Where promising practices include that responsibilities are consistently shared by team members. And what I think is so important about that is that it shouldn't fall on just one person. The second quality indicator is transition planning, empowers the student using AT to participate in the transition planning at a level appropriate to age and ability. You know, unacceptable is the student is not present. Now, I know we talked at the beginning that we really need to get to know the student and their abilities, but when we're making such huge determinations, like we're going to try some assistive technology and see, we need to have the student there too. Again, nothing about me without me to buy in or say, yeah, I want to try that, you know, and I'm telling you, if you pull out something with electronics, chances are any kiddo today is going to say, let's try it. And then promising practices are that the student is a full participant and the student input is consistently reflected in the transition plan. Number 3, advocacy related to AT use is recognized as critical and planned for by the teams involved in transition. Unacceptable is no one advocates for assistive technology use or the development of a student's self-determination skills. And this is where you need the student to be there. And then you need to always be an advocate and be able to say, I wonder if there's some assistive technology that would help with X. And then, of course, the promising practice is advocacy consistently occurs for AT use and the development of students' self-determination skills, that we consider that a key part. 4, AT requirements in the receiving environment are identified during transition planning process. Unacceptable is that, you know, we don't even look at the receiving environment, that AT requirements in the receiving environment aren't identified. This is where in an IEP meeting, when a student's going, you know, to a receiving environment, that environment person should be there. Promising practices are that AT requirements in the receiving environment are consistently identified, note, by all participants, not just by the student, but by the parents, and certainly by the educators that are involved. Number 5, transition planning for students using AT proceeds according to an individualized timeline. And so unacceptable practices that individualized timelines are not developed to support transition planning for students using AT. And that's where you say they'll do it in a year. Excuse me, allergies, I promise. Number 5, though, the promising practices for individualized timeline are that individualized timelines are consistently developed and support transition planning for students using AT. And then our final one, number 6, is transition plans address specific equipment, training, and funding issues such as transfer or acquisition of AT manuals and support documents. Unacceptable would be that the plans don't address AT equipment, training, and funding. Promising practices are that it consistently addresses AT equipment, training, and funding. And realize that in between 1 and 5, there's 2, 3, and 4 as well. Okay, common errors. We started out with best practices. Let's look at some common errors according to the Quiet. Number 1 is that there's a lack of self-determination, self-awareness, and self-advocacy on the part of the individual with a disability. And this is where we need to be listening and learning and watching our students, so that way they can become part. What do you think? Do you think that would work? Do you think you'd want to try it? And if you tried it, did you like it? Because it seemed like it worked, but if you don't like it, things like that. Number 2, lack of adequate long-range planning on the part of sending and receiving agencies. And so we know when they come into high school that they're going to go somewhere in 4 years, if it's a 4-year high school. And so we need to be saying, where are we going to be going? And let's start thinking about the needs of the student while they're there. Because going back to like the case study of the young man who transitioned to a career tech, he had those same needs at the high school. So can you see where the long range planning would be? If he has them at the high school, chances are if we put him at the career tech, no miracle is going to happen between, you know, on that bus ride. So let's make sure that he has the AT there and that they have the ability and the knowledge to use it. Number 3, boy, you know, in my dissertation, this was one of the key factors that I found within the teams, is that there is inadequate communication and coordination. Everybody's got to be on the same page. If the child uses like our little one from the kindergarten at the CDL, the Child Development Lab, to the kindergarten in the elementary school to the 1st grade, he used the same device with the same app in all 3 settings. We needed to be talking to each one of those teachers and all of the paraprofessionals that were there. What we learned with this little one, as we transitioned him between the grades, was that when he was at the Child Development Lab, he had consistently 2 teachers and an assistant teacher. We trained them, all 3 knew what he was doing. It was really the ideal situation. Then he got into the elementary school, and I am not in any way, shape, or form. Remember, I am a product of public school, and I taught in public school my entire career. I understand the reality, and the reality was that while they said he was assigned a one-on-one paraprofessional, we trained her first. Well, she got pregnant, and she had a baby, and she took off for, you know, several weeks. And so then they rotated a whole bunch of paraprofessionals through. And I went into, Claudia and I every once in a while would fill in for our grad students who were observing. I went in to observe him in a small group session. He wasn't using his iPad with the LAMP app. And you know, I was supposed to just observe, but you know, I think you've probably picked up that I'm not a great just observer when it's not working right. So I leaned in and I said, do you know where his assistive technology device is? And this wonderful substitute paraprofessional looked at me and went, I don't know what you're talking about. Inadequate communication and coordination. And so what we as a team did is we gathered back together and we said, you know what? We trained every paraprofessional in that building on the devices. And so by golly, they all knew who was using them and how to use them. So number 4, failure to address funding responsibilities. This I could talk another hour on. I could talk even more, huh, Shelley, about funding.
It's actually a question in the chat box about funding.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is perfect. I'll try to do it really fast because I know we're at 8:06. Okay. Failure to address funding responsibility. It is the school's responsibility to provide the assistive technology. Now the question then becomes, how do they do that? In this day and age, in this economy, how do they do that? And I will tell you as a teacher what I did. When I walked into my classroom in the late 90s, or mid 90s, I encountered a classroom with desks and chairs and 1 box of connecting blocks. And that was all I had to teach 17 students math, English, and art. And so for the first year, my husband hung a sign on our refrigerator that said, my husband's salary supports my teaching habit. And I decided I needed to become a grant writer. And so what we need to understand is that there are organizations out there that will write you a check to help you do good things with your students. And so, and I offer, okay, I'll go on. I offer Oklahoma Able Tech, and I do a workshop on funding, and I'm happy to, first of all, talk with you about any ideas, but then certainly check on the Oklahoma Able Tech website for it. Realize that funding is available. We just need to be looking for it as teachers, and we don't need to just sit and say, there's no funding, there's no way I can afford it, we're gonna move on. Number 5, inadequate evaluations. And this comes down to, you need to document. And that's why I was so thankful to have Claudia on on our research team, because she was so great at collecting the data and communicating, and we need to look at different settings for the process. Number 6 is philosophical differences between sending and receiving agencies. This is huge. This is where this goes back to advocacy. We need to inform career tech that yes, they're getting a student who academically is quite gifted, but needs to have assistive technology to access the information. And then 7, a lack of understanding of the law and of their responsibilities. And I will tell you something, lack of understanding of the law is not a defense. Oklahoma Able Tech and I put together a workshop, and we go through the different laws, and bottom line, they're there and they're in writing, and if you don't know them, that's not an excuse. That we need to understand that using assistive technology to help students be successful in school and in life is not just a good idea. It is absolutely positively a law we need to follow. Okay, the process for transferring ownership, and this is huge. And so I have given you a website on here to go to, and I'll read it off in a minute. A key is this, that how do you transfer ownership of AT? And this is, you know, a big hot topic and debate. Who owns the device? And if the school owns the device, does it go home? Well, if they need it at home to communicate and be able to do their homework and work on the goals that are going on in school, yes, it needs to go home. And then if it's the parents who own it, believe it or not, in my dissertation, I had one little one who used a Toby device. Tobys are very expensive. The parents had gotten it for their child, and the school didn't want it in the school because they didn't want responsibility for something that expensive. Okay, well, we need to work on that. But when it is transferring from one agency to another, realize that, you know, what's great is you don't have to make it up. Again, the form already exists, and it's in order to effectively and efficiently transfer ownership of assistive technology purchased by the school district to a receiving agency or entity. We agree to use the purchase sale agreement form developed by the Georgia Project for Assistive Technology and adopted by the Oklahoma State Department of Ed. So this is where I love collaboration. This is where, I don't know if you've ever heard this saying, none of us are as smart as all of us. We need to ask people, what are you doing over there? Will it work for us? And so the website is available on okabletech-docs.org -4-FOR-the-THE-purchase-sale-of-AT. And basically that will give you a form that walks you through how to transfer if a child is reliant on a device and it needs to go with them. For more information on Able Tech services, please contact the fabulous Shelley Gladden. Her phone number is 405-744-9863. Fax is 405-744-2487. And she is at 1514 West Hall of Fame in Stillwater, Oklahoma, 74078. Her email is Shelley, SHELLEY, .Gladden, GLADDEN, @okstate.edu. And if you lose all of that, go to okabletech, so okabletech.org, and you'll find her there. So,
Thank you so much, Gretchen. Hey, I just wanted to say real quick that someone also had another question in the chat box about how they have a student with CP and curious about what kind of keyboard would be recommended. And along those lines, Gretchen may want to add to this, but I will say call us, call Able Tech. We have an AT specialist that focuses on computer access, and she can probably ask a few questions, help guide. It all depends on the user and the particular needs, and she can walk you through that if you'll call the main number. Also, Gretchen, I wanted to let you know that purchase form I put in the chat box, so that is available as well.
wonderful. Thank you
Any
so
other
much.
final comments, Gretchen?
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Shelley, with the question about keyboards. There are tons out there, and you know, my thought process was with Shelley, what would be, wow, I would need a lot of questions answered before I could guide you to one. And so please call Oklahoma Able Tech, because they will work with you too, just as they did with me when I was in the classroom. And they've got lots of them, and you can borrow them for free. So
It's always amazing how Gretchen can get it all in this short amount of time. So thank you. You like did speed speaking tonight. Really appreciate you always represent Able Tech well. We already covered how you can get your certification for completion, certificate for completion. You'll be getting an evaluation, but I do want to remind you that there is one more day of the 15th annual OTI. Starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the topic of understanding culture and identity through an intersectional framework. Arlo Clementine will be presenting, and I know it's going to be a fabulous day tomorrow. She'll have a great session. It'll be a great day tomorrow. So with that, thank you all so very much. We appreciate you spending this evening with us.
yes, thank you very much. Take good care, everyone.